The judge laughed at Elon Musk in court until Musk opened his mouth. What happened next left the entire courtroom speechless. No legal degree, no script, just Elon, standing alone, dismantling the case against him with pure strategy and genius. Was it a stunt, or something far more brilliant? Did he really just say that? The judge couldn't help but chuckle. A flicker of disbelief crossed his face. Then a few snickers from the crowd. The courtroom, packed to the brim, was tense, until the silence broke and laughter filled the room. Even some of the attorneys exchanged looks, amused by what they thought was a ridiculous statement. But one man stood calmly in the eye of the storm: Elon Musk. One of the most brilliant yet controversial minds of our generation, Musk had once again found himself at the center of chaos. But this time, it wasn't on a rocket launch pad or a Tesla unveiling stage. It was in a federal courtroom facing a lawsuit that could cost him billions and tarnish his reputation forever. It all began with a single tweet, just a few words typed and sent from Elon's phone in 2018. "Am considering taking Tesla private at $420. Funding secured." The internet exploded, stocks surged, analysts scrambled, and within hours Wall Street was in a frenzy. But behind the excitement came suspicion. Regulators at the SEC weren't amused, shareholders were confused, and soon enough accusations flew in like missiles. Did Elon Musk lie to manipulate the market? Was there really any funding secured, or was it all just a bold move that crossed a legal line? The lawsuit that followed was nothing short of explosive. A group of shareholders claimed Elon's tweet was misleading, causing wild swings in Tesla's stock price and leading to financial losses for those who bought high and watched it crash. They painted a picture of Musk as an impulsive, erratic billionaire who used Twitter like a toy, and this time it had gone too far. So there he was, inside a high-stakes courtroom that looked more like a movie set than a legal chamber. The walls echoed with whispers, the media cameras clicked outside, and tensions were sky-high. Many expected Elon to crumble under pressure. After all, he's a tech innovator, not a lawyer. The courtroom is a battlefield of words, logic, and precedent, not blueprints and prototypes. And when the judge finally looked Musk in the eye and asked him to explain himself, most assumed this would be a brief, awkward disaster. But instead, Elon said something so unexpected, so wildly unconventional, that the entire courtroom froze. He stood tall, leaned into the mic, and with total confidence said, "Yes, Your Honor, I did tweet that, and I meant every word." Gasps, snickers, laughter. To most in the room, this sounded like a confession, not a defense. Saying he meant it? That he stood by the tweet? The judge himself cracked a smile and raised an eyebrow as if to say, "Is this guy serious?" But Elon didn't flinch. He didn't stutter. He didn't seem nervous at all. And that's when something strange started to happen. As the laughter died down and the murmurs faded, people began to lean in. Because Musk wasn't just throwing out bold statements, he was building towards something. He explained that the tweet wasn't just a casual thought or a reckless joke. It was, in his words, a strategic communication, the kind of message that someone in his position, with as many enemies as allies, had to make in order to protect the vision of Tesla. He said he wasn't just thinking about money or investors. He was thinking about the mission, the dream of sustainable energy, the fight against oil giants, the constant war with short sellers betting against Tesla's future. In his mind, that tweet wasn't a gamble. It was a shield. And when he said funding secured, he wasn't lying, at least not in the way the media made it seem. Elon began to speak of private conversations, confidential meetings, and a real offer from foreign investors. He painted a picture of a plan in motion, not a fantasy. Still, the judge looked skeptical. The lawyers chuckled again. This defense, while dramatic, sounded too wild to be true. But then Elon took things even further. He began to break down financial laws, quote corporate disclosure rules, and reference cases from decades ago. And suddenly, the room started to shift. The smirks disappeared. Pens stopped moving. The judge leaned forward. Was Elon Musk actually prepared for this? Was he not just a genius engineer, but also someone who had studied law, strategy, and investor psychology to a frightening degree? As he continued speaking, even his harshest critics had to admit, this wasn't some reckless billionaire shooting from the hip. This was something else entirely. This was legal genius masked in memes and tweets. And this, my friends, is where the real story begins. The room was silent again, this time not from disbelief, but from intrigue. The judge, a respected veteran of federal court, known for cutting through nonsense with brutal precision, adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. Then came the question that would hang in the air like electricity. Mr. Musk, are you seriously telling us that a tweet was all part of your strategic plan? It was blunt, almost dismissive. It was the kind of question that demanded either a retreat or a revelation. Elon Musk didn't flinch. He stood calmly, hands folded in front of him. No legal counsel whispered in his ear. No team rushed to his defense. He looked the judge square in the eye and replied with the same composure he shows during rocket launches. Yes, Your Honor. Tweets are my form of modern communication. It's how I move markets, manage public perception, and keep my companies alive. A few people in the courtroom couldn't hold back their laughter this time. A lawyer from the opposing side shook his head in amusement. Somewhere in the back, a reporter raised an eyebrow as if thinking, is this really happening? But Elon wasn't smiling. He wasn't being sarcastic. He was dead serious. In a tone that was more lecture than defense, Musk began to unfold a strategy that most of the world had never even considered. He spoke about how attention drives everything in the modern era. In a world drowning in information, he explained, the ability to cut through the noise and command the spotlight is more valuable than any marketing budget or corporate press release. Traditional press releases are for the past, he said. Twitter is the future. It's fast, it's direct, and it's unfiltered. And that's why it works. People in the courtroom shifted in their seats. The scoffing stopped. Musk began to paint a picture, not of chaos, but of chess. He explained that every tweet he sends is weighed carefully. It's not random. It's not reckless. It's communication for a new era, designed to reach millions in seconds and spark movement, in public opinion, in media coverage, in the market itself. He described the ripple effects of his tweets, how a single line can trigger global headlines within minutes, how journalists scramble to interpret his words, how investors read between the lines and adjust billions in capital based on 280 characters. He even described Twitter as a tool more powerful than any corporate press conference. In this digital age, he said firmly, Twitter isn't just a social platform. It's a weapon, and I know how to use it. That line hit the courtroom like a lightning bolt. The same lawyer who laughed earlier was now scribbling notes. The judge narrowed his eyes, not in dismissal, but in genuine focus. What had once sounded like the ramblings of a reckless billionaire now came across as a calculated philosophy. And then Elon took it a step further. He pulled up real data, graphs showing how public sentiment shifted within hours of his tweets. He referenced examples from both Tesla and SpaceX, demonstrating how digital communication had shaped everything from fundraising to public policy. He mentioned how Tesla's stock had historically been targeted by short sellers, people who profit when the company fails. Elon explained that public confidence is everything when you're running a company that's trying to change the world. I'm not just protecting a stock, he said. I'm protecting a mission, clean energy, innovation, the survival of Tesla. Every word I post has a purpose. At this point, the room was hanging on every syllable. The judge, no longer amused, nodded slightly, perhaps in recognition of the broader implications. Musk's defense wasn't a defense at all. It was a redefinition of communication in the modern business world. And the most shocking part? He wasn't relying on his legal team to make this case. He was doing it himself, calm, articulate, confident, no legal jargon, no evasion, just facts, strategy, and an unnerving sense of control. For years, critics had called Elon Musk erratic, impulsive, even dangerous. But on this day in this courtroom, he appeared not as a rogue CEO, but as a visionary who understood the game better than anyone else. He wasn't apologizing for the tweet. He was standing by it and proving that it was part of a much bigger plan, a plan that might just rewrite the rules of corporate communication. And as the judge sat back in his chair, silent for a moment, one thing was clear. No one was laughing anymore. Then came the moment that no one in that courtroom was prepared for. Not the lawyers, not the press, not even Elon Musk's own legal team. Without a law degree, without formal training, and without notes in hand, Elon Musk began to dissect securities law like a veteran attorney. At first, people thought it was a bluff, a distraction tactic, maybe another bizarre Musk performance meant to delay or confuse the proceedings. But then, the courtroom fell into an eerie silence. Elon wasn't bluffing. He started by quoting the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. Yes, word for word. He explained the difference between material misstatements and forward-looking statements in the context of public companies. Then he began referencing case law from decades past, citing precedent after precedent, and connecting each one to his current situation. Judges who had presided over corporate giants, CEOs who had spoken too soon or too vaguely and ended up with fines, bans, or worse. But unlike those CEOs, Musk wasn't caught off guard. He showed the court that he not only understood the rules, he had anticipated them. Even his own attorneys glanced at each other, visibly stunned. One of them leaned over to whisper something, clearly not expecting their client to lead his own legal argument. And yet, that's exactly what Elon was doing. Whispers began spreading across the courtroom. Did Musk study law in secret? Is this part of some elaborate legal strategy? Is he quoting a Supreme Court case right now? He was. And he wasn't just quoting them. He was explaining them, simplifying them, demonstrating exactly how his tweet, "funding secured," didn't break the law but instead fell within a legal gray area that had never truly been tested in the age of social media. He argued that the tweet was not a deliberate misstatement, but a strategic communication based on real conversations he had with foreign investors, specifically representatives from Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. This wasn't fiction, he said, looking directly at the judge. This was negotiation in motion. We had multiple conversations, real interest, and term sheets in development. In my world, when serious people with serious money express serious intent, I call that funding secured. The courtroom listened, now captivated. He revealed timelines, emails, and even private meeting notes showing that the Saudi fund had, in fact, been in advanced talks to help him take Tesla private at $420 a share. It wasn't some random number pulled from thin air. Elon explained the logic. $420 wasn't just symbolic. It included a premium over Tesla's existing share price at the time. It was calculated, justified, and yes, maybe a little playful, because in classic Musk fashion, he admitted with a half smile, I rounded it up a bit. 420 has, let's say, cultural relevance, but the funding, it was real. The judge didn't smile, but he didn't interrupt either. Musk went on to draw a bold comparison, how social media, particularly Twitter, had changed the entire landscape of corporate disclosure. He argued that platforms like Twitter were the new press release, faster, more accessible, and directly connected to the people most affected, the shareholders. He pointed to SEC guidance from 2013, which explicitly stated that social media platforms could be used for official company announcements so long as investors were notified where to find them. And they were, he said with confident clarity. Everyone knows I communicate through Twitter. It's public, it's archived, and it reaches millions instantly. By the end of his impromptu legal lecture, you could feel the atmosphere shift. The lawyers who had once scoffed were now silent. The courtroom reporters scribbled frantically. And the judge, he was no longer dismissive. He was focused, curious. Musk hadn't just defended himself, he had taken control of the room. This wasn't the wild ramblings of a reckless billionaire. This was the calculated, confident voice of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't traditional, but it was effective. The defense wasn't just solid, it was genius. And in that moment, everyone in the room, whether they liked him or not, realized something chilling. Elon Musk hadn't just come to play, he came to win. By now, the judge had stopped smiling. The courtroom, once filled with laughter and doubt, had transformed. No more whispers, no more smirks, just a deep, electric silence, the kind that only falls when something truly unexpected has just happened. The judge leaned forward, his face tight with focus. He looked at Elon Musk not as a reckless billionaire or eccentric entrepreneur, but as an opponent, a formidable one, a man who just turned the courtroom into his own personal boardroom. This wasn't supposed to happen. Most CEOs crumble under cross-examination. They rely entirely on their lawyers. They play it safe. Elon? He had flipped the script. He had not only defended himself, he had redefined the entire playing field. And now the judge was fully engaged. He removed his glasses slowly, eyes fixed on Musk, and asked the one question that had been hanging in the air since the trial began. Mr. Musk, did you ever intend to deceive anyone? It wasn't a trick question. It wasn't meant to trap him. It was asked with sincerity, with weight. Elon didn't pause, didn't deflect. He looked straight ahead and spoke, his voice calm but firm. No, Your Honor, my goal was never to deceive. My goal was to protect Tesla, to protect the mission, to stop short sellers from tearing the company apart. We were vulnerable and I needed to act fast. I didn't break the law. I bent the rules of communication in a digital world that's evolving faster than the courts can keep up. The room was still. Every word echoed. He continued. What I did, what I always try to do, is tell the truth in a way that moves people. That tweet wasn't random. It was a reflection of real discussions with serious investors. It was bold, yes, but it wasn't dishonest. He paused, and then delivered the final blow. In a world where headlines decide the fate of billion-dollar companies, clarity isn't always enough. Sometimes you need to send a signal strong enough to cut through the noise. The judge sat back. For several seconds, he said nothing. The courtroom held its breath. Then came a sound no one expected. Not laughter, not gavel-pounding fury, but a slow, quiet chuckle. Not mocking, but almost impressed. He leaned back in his chair and spoke with a tone few had ever heard from him. This may be the most unique legal defense I've ever seen in my courtroom. Heads turned. Pens dropped. A reporter in the front row blinked twice, unsure if they'd heard correctly. The judge looked down at his notes, then back up at Musk. I've seen CEOs plead ignorance. I've seen them blame advisors, play victim, or hide behind teams of lawyers. But what I've seen today is something else entirely. He wasn't praising Musk, but he wasn't condemning him either. He was acknowledging something undeniable. Elon Musk had taken a beating and turned it into a masterclass. And then, without warning, the judge reached for his gavel. A quick glance at both sides, a nod to the court clerk, and then, bang! The sound of the gavel echoed like thunder. Court adjourned. No final outburst, no dramatic objections. Just stunned silence and the sound of people slowly rising from their seats, trying to process what had just happened. For the first time in weeks, Elon Musk didn't walk out of the courtroom surrounded by shouting journalists and doubting critics. Instead, he walked out surrounded by murmurs of admiration, confusion, and one overwhelming question. Did he just win? Not just the case, but the narrative. He didn't walk out like a man who survived a trial. He walked out like a man who rewrote. Though the trial dragged on for weeks, with countless expert testimonies, hours of legal arguments, and mountains of paperwork, that one moment changed everything. The moment Elon Musk stood up, alone, and turned a courtroom into a classroom. The moment he redefined what it meant to speak in the modern world. And while the legal process had to continue, something had shifted in the air. The prosecutors had lost their momentum. The media had changed their tone. Even the investors, once furious and ready to strike, were now watching with new respect. This was no longer a man on trial. It was a man making history. When the final verdict came, it landed like a shockwave. Not guilty of fraud. No intention to deceive. The tweet was unorthodox, but not illegal. The court acknowledged that Musk's choice of words may have caused confusion, but confusion isn't the same as criminal intent. And the judge ruled that Elon Musk had provided enough real-world evidence, from meetings with the Saudi Public Investment Fund to internal Tesla communications, to prove that in his mind the funding truly was secured. And that belief, according to the court, was defensible. The room sat still, frozen in disbelief. The lawyers who brought the case looked stunned. Musk's legal team gave cautious nods, but none of them looked as calm as Elon himself, who simply nodded like he had predicted this all along. The business world exploded. Within minutes, headlines were flying across every major news outlet. Elon Musk wins court battle over funding secured tweet. A new era of corporate communication begins with one tweet. The tweet heard around the world. Musk changes legal playbook forever. Law firms held emergency meetings. CEOs started reviewing their social media policies. Public relations teams began studying Musk's courtroom performance like it was a Harvard case study. Even Wall Street felt the tremor. Tesla stocks surged. Analysts admitted, many for the first time, that Musk's communication style, once mocked, might actually be a powerful strategic tool. But beyond the numbers, something bigger had shifted. Elon Musk had crossed over. He was no longer just the rocket guy, or the electric car guy, or the meme king of Twitter. Now he was seen as something else entirely. A man who challenged the legal system, and won. A tech mogul who understood the rules of the courtroom just as well as the rules of code, science, and business. He didn't just defend a tweet. He defended the future. He showed the world that the way we communicate today, through tweets, posts, and live streams, is just as real, just as impactful, and just as serious as anything printed on paper or filed with the SEC. And when he finally walked out of the courthouse, surrounded by flashing cameras and stunned reporters, he didn't hold a press conference. He didn't gloat. He just smiled, calm, unbothered. Then, as microphones were shoved in his face and questions fired from every direction, Elon turned to the crowd and delivered a single line that would echo across the internet for days. "Next time you underestimate a tweet, remember, words are weapons, and I don't miss." The reporters gasped. The clip went viral in seconds. Memes exploded. Reaction videos, breakdowns, think pieces. It all poured in. Some called him arrogant. Others called him brilliant. But everyone agreed on one thing. Elon Musk had changed the game. For CEOs, it was a wake-up call. For regulators, it was a challenge. And for Musk, it was just another day of being ahead of the curve. This trial didn't just end with a courtroom win. It ended with a cultural shift. Because from now on, every public statement, every tweet, Every social media post made by a leader, a company, or a politician would be measured against the standard Elon Musk just set. No filters, no scripts, just raw, strategic communication at the speed of the internet. And that's how Elon Musk, the man known for building rockets and reinventing cars, became something even more dangerous, a master of the message, a disruptor of the legal world, and a reminder to everyone watching that underestimating him is always a mistake. One man, one courtroom, one tweet that shook the world. Like this video if you felt the impact, subscribe for more mind-blowing stories, and make sure to ring the bell. We're just getting started.